reminds me of that proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? The next best time is now. And I will say the same thing about the buying of real estate. Everything was like, why are we doing this? And looking back, every single one of them, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I bought what I did.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Gentle Art of Crushing It. I have a very special guest on with me today. Her name is Keller Briscoe. And Karen is a highly sought after life and productivity coach. She is a mega real estate agent, investor, and creator of the transformative 5-Minute Success concept. The author of 4 books and the host of the 5-Minute Success podcast, a heroine and entrepreneur. So I love that intro, and I would love to dive into your journey, how you got to where you are, and where it all started.
Well, I love the idea of the gentle art of crushing it, because I think I shared with you, I took improv, and one of the name memory devices they use is you were supposed to pick something to describe you. And I said, I'm Karen crushing it. So crushing it, Karen. So there you go. I've been crushing it ever since for quite some time. And so my real estate journey actually started in dirt. I worked for a commercial real estate developer out of college and really loved the whole deal making. It was land development. And so fast forward, through getting married and having children and relocating to the Northern Virginia, D.C. metro region, I wanted to re-enter the workforce after staying home about a dozen years with our kids as being the primary caregiver. And I went back to work in commercial real estate. And I worked for the Starbucks company and had the Nextel account. So it was sales, engineering, warehouse offices. And I have to just say that if you've seen one sales, engineering, or warehouse office, you've seen them all. It's pretty cookie cutter. And it was also around the year 2000. And if you'll remember what was going on in the economy at the time, it was actually a tech bust. And the one thing I've learned about when companies are in disposition mode, there's usually no money in it. So I had my real estate license, and someone said, well, why don't you try residential? And I'll just say that I had this perception, as many commercial people do, that those residential people, they're in the fluffy stuff, all that emotion. And so I went into it not knowing whether it would be a good fit, but it turned out it was, because really have what I like to say, the hard and soft skills. I don't know if you remember the old Sears commercial, but Sears would sell hard goods like lawnmowers and tools, but they also sold soft goods like clothing and household items. So the hard skills in real estate are negotiations, market knowledge, strategy, soft skills, relationship building, and just the whole service side. And I met with success very rapidly. And I really feel like, I was in the phase of the gentle art of crushing it, beginning stages. What often happens when you're doing something well, people notice. And Sue Huckaby, who at the time was number 10 in the nation as a residential agent, asked me to join her team. And then a couple of years later, I became her partner. And then she sadly passed away in 2008. And it happened to be the same month that the financial markets crashed. So here I am taking over this mega team. And in a market that was really, really challenging. So I learned different arts in that cycle of my business and life. In the meantime, our kids started to become older and more self-sufficient, so I had more time to focus on the business. My son left for college, and so I brought on a business partner in 2009, Lizzie Conroy, who's still with me. And we're together, and we set about rebuilding the business. It was a very challenging time in the economy and the market, because obviously it wasn't just real estate that was affected. And so we rebuilt the business. And as I would be speaking and coaching and training with people, because I did have unique aspect. A lot of people went through the financial market crash and real estate crash, but I also had the losing my partner. They wanted to know how I did it. And that led to me doing, like I said, a lot of speaking, coaching, and training. And over again, people said, Karen, you have the best stories. You should write a book. And so that then led to what I call my creative side or creative arts journey of writing the books, becoming an author, and that led to podcasting, and then the more speaking and coaching and training. So that's a bumper sticker of my journey, but I'm sure there's lots in there that you would love to unpack.
Yes, I would love to unpack quite a bit, actually. So you had started in commercial land development and then took a pretty long break for family reasons. What was sort of your like the impetus or like what your mindset was when you were starting to re-enter the workforce again? How were you thinking about leveraging the skill set that you used to have, right, in commercial land development, and were you just antsy to like sort of dust off the cobwebs and put yourself out there again?
Well, yes, definitely. I mean, much as I love my children and I feel blessed that I had that opportunity to have those years with them, my husband's travel schedule was just so challenging and we didn't have family nearby. And the women and the people who figured this out, I really hats off to you because I couldn't figure it out. I would say that my highest and best self is a business person, and I really feel like I have found my calling. So I feel like I got both hands. I know that many women, or for different situations, it's not always women, men, they're like, what will happen if I take or leave the workforce or not fully engaged for a long period of time? I really found it to be so vitalizing, enriching, that I just felt like I was thriving. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't without challenges. I mean, there was a lot of technology that I needed to catch up on. I was staying somewhat current. It wasn't like I was totally behind the times, but there was a lot. And that's one thing I share with people is that it does seem to be the technology, but it's also a mindset. So it's the mindset that you really enjoy learning and growing and becoming better than before. And I tell this story, my son, and this is a little while ago, this is when Venmo first became available for doing interpersonal payments, cash. And my son owed me some money. And he goes, well, I'll Venmo you. And I'm like, no, you just write me a check or give me cash. And he goes, nobody my age has cash or checks. And so if you want to get paid, we're going to learn how to Venmo. Well, learning how to Venmo is just one of those that we say, like, it's like Venmo, it could be better. It totally changed the way I looked at, carrying cash and checks, because really nobody does. So if you don't, what I found is joining in and learning these things, maybe you're not the first mover advantage, but early adopter, you're going to get the benefits of it. And so I always say it could be like Venmo, it could be better, because we then put all of our rental properties on Venmo, and we were on a cruise in Europe, and the rents came in, and we just transferred them over. Now we've since gone to ACH. Venmo has now figured that out, that people were doing that. So there are other portals that you can use, but we use that as an example or a way of thinking and living. Is that so to embrace it and to think of it like Venmo, that it could be better. And so we're always looking towards what is the next. I really love the Wayne Gretzky quote that he skates to where the puck is going. I'm like, we should be always moving to where the market is going, or technology is going, or anything that can, improve our client experience or our work or service level. We're always looking for that. So we embrace that growth mindset, myself and my team and the people around me.
Growth mindset, yeah, that's key for sure. So you overcome this challenge, and then you dive back in and you're super successful in the residential real estate space. And then you come across another challenge, which you have a company, you're running with your partner. There's an unfortunate situation, with your partner, and then the financial crash. And then how do you overcome that?
Well, in being in commercial real estate, that was during the 1980s, and there was a savings and loan crisis in Texas in the 80s. It was not really widespread around the United States. I don't know why I think that there was deregulation around savings and loans in Texas, and so there were a lot of deals that were being done that were perhaps not as underwritten as well as they should have been. And so anyhow, I saw what happened in Texas in the 80s. And when I saw the market, or I felt the market shifting, starting in about 2005, 2006, I actually began to prepare a team and my clients and the market. Now, some people didn't want to listen, but I kept saying the message, and then made pretty significant adjustments to the expense side of the equation and running the business, recognizing the fact that that was what it was. If income was going to go down, expenses needed to be in line. Some things I did, way ahead of the game. Some things I did just because we had to. But that was the biggest impact, was that, and changing up staff. Then the rebuilding was on the other side, in the sense that you still want to be able to provide a high quality service to your clients, because we have a very sophisticated clientele. And so we don't want to get costs, expenses so low that you're not providing the level of service. So we were always being very creative in that, and then built the business back up again. So now at this time frame of 2000 all the way from about 2019, 2020 to today, our team sells about $100 million in real estate a year. And we have, like I said, a very sophisticated clientele. Our average sales price is a little bit over $1 million. So it's we're back up to what we were doing pre market crash and losing my business partner. But there were some. And I will say, it hasn't been a straight trajectory back up. I mean, there have been things that have happened along the way, as everybody is aware. If you go back and look at, there was sequestration, there was tax reform, there was a pandemic, there was the Fed raising the rates. I mean, that's the thing. I have, in my several decades of being in the real estate space, is that there will always be something. And so it's the survival of the adapter, right? It's the one that learns and grows and becomes better than before. When it comes to interest rates, I share a story. So my business partner who passed, Huckaby, her husband was a congressman in the late 1970s and early 1980s. And if you go back and you look at when interest rates were the highest, that was when they were the highest, 18%. And so Sue said to her husband, Jerry, when are you going to do something about interest rates in Congress? And he said, Sue, when are you going to learn how to sell houses no matter what the interest rate is? And that is one of our philosophies. So whatever it is you want to put in that blank, how are we going to learn how to service our clients and sell houses? That is what we do, right? And so I think I see a lot of people are focusing on trying to change things that are really out of their control to change, putting a lot of energy into that. I'm like, let's put our energy into the things that we do have control over and that we can impact and influence.
Yeah, you have to be super nimble in your thinking as well as in your execution, right? Especially when you get a curveball and you have zero control over it, right? You just have to adjust with the time. Wonderful. I want to get to the creative part of your journey in a second, but I know you have a whole nother piece to the story around you yourself being an investor along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about your investing journey, how you got into investing, and what does that look like today?
Well, I became what I call an accidental investor. For many years, I enjoyed the agency side of business, and that there's, less skin in the game, if you will. And I had come from a background. My father was an entrepreneur, and I felt like his risk management skills were. I always felt like there was, he took on endeavors. There were always the exciting adventures, but they often came with a lot of risk. So a little bit risk reverse. And in 2012, our son came back from college, from being out of state, and he wanted to get a dog, and his friend wanted a roommate with him, and they couldn't find anything to rent. And I'm like, well, I guess I could buy something, and then you could become our tenants. And I have to say, they're the worst tenants we've ever had because they got these two dogs and they tore everything up. But it really, it just a light bulb went on, and I realized, which many people do, and I don't know why it took me so long, and I try to share this message with as many people as I can, the benefits of investing. So, I recognize the fact that tenants basically paying down the mortgage. You're buying 100% of an asset for basically 20% down, which what other asset can you do? As a residential agent, there's the added benefit of it becomes a client stream. Most of our properties are, I don't want to say the first kind of time home buyer or second time home buyer. They're a great move up buyer, so they often become clients. And then you have, of course, the appreciation of the asset and appreciation of the rent. And then if you're a real estate professional designation in the tax code, we saw the miracle of depreciation, cost segregation, and bonus depreciation. And all of that started the journey. And so over the next 10 plus years, have now acquired 8 rental properties. And then, so we met our capacity in terms of what you can borrow with a Freddie Mac Fannie Mae loan. So then we branched out to doing some commercial investing, not syndication, but some privately held investing. So it's been quite a journey. But when I realized how many benefits there are, the only thing I can say is, I don't know why I waited so long. I mean, it reminds me of that proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Is now. And I will say the same thing about the buying the real estate. Every time we bought, it felt like prices were really high. Interest rates were really high. Everything was really why are we doing this? And looking back, every single one of them, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I bought when I did. So anybody out there sitting on the fence, I'm here to, proclaim from the mountaintops. 10 years from now, I'm pretty confident you're going to be glad you did.
Isn't that funny? Like at that moment in time when you're buying something, and I did an investment in 2021, and I think right when we found the deal, the multifamily deal, the interest rates had gone up by a couple of points, which now in retrospect, that was amazing, right? Because we were at 4%, but we were like, oh, we missed the 3% mark. Oh, bummer. But now it's we're glad we got in when we did.
It's probably 7+. What I tell people in terms of the way to look at interest rates and whatever you're in, okay, if that turns out to be the lowest interest rate ever, you will be glad you locked it in. If it turns out interest rates go down, you will be able to refinance. So it is a win-win. In almost all cases. Now, I'm sure there's situations where I'm not going to say blanket, but if you look at it that way, that really helps people sometimes get over the fact that they lost out on the 3%. So if you're going to focus on the 3%, then yeah, of course I could say that I could have bought a lot of real estate 20 years ago for half the price, right? Or maybe even less, right? That's how much it's gone up. But if you focus on that, on the lack, then you're missing out on the opportunity for the abundance. And so try to help people sometimes get through those mind, perspectives that help them to see how it still could be a good deal now and could be better later.
In years to come, yeah, agree. You can change the interest rate, you can't change the price. So
Well, and that's true. That's why it's such an inflation, fantastic as an inflationary investment because, you're fixing, that cost. And now I know some costs are variable, but the biggest asset cost you're fixing.
Exactly, exactly. Well, so you're on this residential real estate track and your business is doing great. You're investing in parallel. And then there's an evolution and someone says, hey, Karen, you have really great stories and you should do more of these talking, speaking engagements. Tell me more about this evolution in your path and how you approached it.
It really was also very internal in the sense that I felt like it was a calling. I felt like I was capable of doing so much more, and that and when I started to realize the level of success that I had achieved, really from I didn't start working full time until my son left for college, which was late when I turned about 50, and so I'm like, if I can accomplish this much in this period of time, I still have a lot of things to do, so I better get busy doing them, right? So it was an internal and an external pull, and I like to tell the story using Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz because she's the best heroine's journey story there is. There's a lot of hero's journey stories where the male goes out and slays the dragons or whatever. The female ones aren't as common, and so if you remember Dorothy, she did have an internal unrest. She wasn't happy in Kansas, and remember she was getting ready to leave, and then the witch, and well, she turned out to be the witch, but the old lady was after her dog, and so then the Twister comes, and the Twister really does pick her up and takes her to Kansas or out of Kansas into, and then the house falls on the witch, and then she goes on this journey, and the journey is she meets people along the way, friends, the lion, the scarecrow, and the tin man, and she meets the good witch, but she also meets challenges along the way, the winged monkeys and the witches. But she discovers that it's inside of her all along, right? And that's really the message, that she had it in her all along and that she could have gone home. And when she does go home, she goes home a changed person. And she looks at the same things that were going on in her life differently. Well, that is really what I feel like is what happened with me. I understand it better now and I can explain it, but I recognize that I had so much more to do. And the interesting thing is it was during a time of high success. I was extremely successful. Most people go, Karen, can't you just, be happy and ride off it in sunset? I'm like, again, I think I have so much more to do, so I'm going to keep doing it. It's kind of like Martha Stewart being on Sports Illustrated at 81. I mean, wow. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, why not,
I saw that today and I'm like, wow, really? Okay.
It's like change the way you look at things and the way you look at things changes. So when I started to change the way I looked at things, I'm like, wow, I've got this, that I could do and this I could do. So the book was really what started it all, the catalyst. And then that led to being asked to be a guest on podcasts, which led to me launching a podcast. And then, the coaching and the speaking has come as well. And I say interesting, one of the benefits of it is that it really, well, first of all, I felt re-energized. I felt like my spirit had found its new purpose. It also energized my business. I have met people all over, the world, the United States. I've learned things. I've been able to help people with things. The connections that I've made. And so it's like the places you could go. I mean, the places my book has taken me, I'm like, this is really exciting. So this whole creative endeavor journey has just been really a lot of fun.
Very cool. So tell us about the book and the topic and the 5-minute success story.
So it came about because when in coaching, speaking, training, and these stories, people would say, oh, I don't have enough time to do personal and business development. And I said, well, do you have 5 minutes a day? Everybody has 5 minutes a day. And everybody agreed they did have 5 minutes a day. And it turns out this is actually a productivity hack or tip or law, Parkinson's law, limiting and restricting time actually can make you more effective and efficient. And the best example I can give is when you're getting ready to go out of town, how productive are you, right? Like the things become what you know you need to get done, you get done, and you know what to delegate, delete. People become very productive when they know they're getting ready to go out of town. So the idea is the same on the positive side, right? On the finding ways to implement in 5 minutes a day. So the book is set up every day is like it's a daily reader. So every day is a different topic. I am working with the publisher. He said, well, I think that's great. Every day is different, but there should be some sort of structure to it. So there are key topics. The first one is commit to get leads, which is about lead generation, business development, prospecting. And the next one is consult to sell. So you have a lead, you have to get it through the process to get a deal on the other end. Then what often happens is people, they get a lead, they get it through settlement or they get it through the process, and then they wake up and do it all over again. And that, creates this hamster wheel or this only as good as your next deal lifestyle or business cycle. And so the connect to build and grow, that's how to create scale, leverage systems. And then all of it is surrounded by success thinking, activities, and vision. So that's the mindset motivation piece. So what has happened by writing a book, 5 Minute Success, I've become somewhat of a productivity time guru, because that's the first thing people ask. Well, how can you achieve a higher level of success in 5 minutes a day? So the idea is most people benefit from a morning routine. Hal Elrod is a good friend of mine. He's endorsed all my books. If you're, the reading part of the morning routine in Miracle Morning, then you could do it in 5 minutes, and then you start your day, your business on this positive trajectory. You're more likely to remember it if you, a lot of reading, personal development training is like tsunami, it's too much information. So you're less likely to remember it. When you take it in small nuggets, apply it to your business and life, you're more likely to be able to sustain or to build on that. And so then over the book came out in 2016. So since that time, I've had a lot of opportunity to speak with people and coach with people on productivity and achieving a higher level of success.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love Hal, by the way. I read his book a couple of years ago and then started implementing the Miracle Morning right away. And then we had some, my kids are still young. So at the time they were going through some sleep regressions, and that kind of got me off track. And then I got back on track. So it's been like getting on track, getting off track a little bit, but now I'm back on and I'm loving it. I think like slotting in an hour or so in the morning before everything gets crazy in your day, your mind is clear. You can do some really creative thinking in the morning. That's how I find that time being so productive. Love it. Love it. I wanted to ask you a question kind of to that time management, or even more broadly. You mentioned that you accomplished a lot in the last 10 years. Can you speak to some of the habits that you kind of deploy to create success, to be productive?
Well, that is really true for a lot of people, in that they, this whole time quandary, right? That people think they don't have enough time. And I used to think that too. So I have come to understand time differently, because it truly is, time is a created thing and everybody gets the same amount. So we're all equal in that realm. And so the idea is there are some things you do that are going to be meaningful. And when you do them, it's going to have a higher impact. And some things you're going to do and you're going to it's going to be an energy drainer. It's going to be like, wear you out. In fact, it was Einstein that said time is relative, right? So 5 minutes with your hand on a hot stove or in traffic or on a Zoom meeting you don't want to be on, it's going to feel like forever. But when you're with someone you love, time flies by. So the idea is energy. It's energy, not time, that is truly the currency of high productivity and a fulfilling life. So that's where I came up with the idea of flipping time, because many people think it's time management and they think that they're going to figure out a way to, slice and dice it. And I'm like, oh no, you need to flip the whole thing over. Because if you'll remember from your early psychology classes, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that if you follow that structure, the basic foundation are the basic human needs. And if you think back to the early times of the pandemic, we really did. Many people went back to their basic, like toilet paper, the basic human needs, right? And then you have your safety, security needs. And again, that was very, very evident in the pandemic, how much safety and security mean to people. And then you have, relationship, and then you have your esteem, and then you have self-actualization. Well, the thing is if you wait to get to the top of the pyramid to self-actualize, you may run out of time. That's one thing that could happen. The other thing is that what I find is if you flip the pyramid and you start with self-actualization, then you will have higher self-esteem because you will be in alignment and in tune with what is your highest and best self. And that will lead to better relationships, and you will actually be the most self-insecure when you are being your best self. And then that, in most cases, what I found is leads to high productivity, like you are doing what you're best at. So when people ask me about it, I'm like, well, so you should just do everything that's important first. That's what you should do, because then everything else becomes clear or unnecessary. It's I'm sure you've heard of the one thing. This is a great, clarifying question. But what's the one thing you can do such that everything else is either easier or unnecessary? So it's kind of like that. What's the one thing you can do that will have the most impact? What's the one thing you can do that will, fill your needs so that then you are able to do more? And when I started to flip the pyramid, change the way I looked at things, then things started to change. It all starts with your thoughts. That's the beautiful thing. When I discovered that I really was empowered and had control over what happened in my life, it was so inspiring and invigorating. Because before I used to think I was, at the mercy of the market, or, what a client would want, or, and when I realized it really was me and the way I looked at it, it became so empowering. And so then it comes out of choice instead of out of, burden or something you don't want to do. You're doing it because you do want to do, and that becomes this positive self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh my gosh, I just love all of what you just described. I think I'm going to actually transcribe it on a post-it and just keep it in line of sight every day. Energy is the currency. That is so good. And yeah, completely flipping the pyramid and focusing on getting in that alignment around what you're really passionate about, right? That's so key. Well, Karen, I know that this isn't it for you. You're already pretty planning what the next 10 years will look like for you and on your journey and path. Anything you'd like to share with folks that you're kind of dreaming up today?
Well, so what I really am, I continue to be very passionate about my real estate business. I love my clients, and I find that to be very rewarding. And I still get excited when I meet with someone. And so that is, I think I'm going to be like Martha Stewart, and I'm going to continue until 81. I also really have a passion for helping people, because what has happened for me and it was really Hal Elrod that was so instrumental in all of my, growth work in terms of personal development. And so, the opportunity to work with people to help predominantly mega agents, but those who want to be, or those who are wanting to take their life and to the next level, that to coach my coaching practice. So I do have a few slots available for people. So I look forward to doing that, and perhaps expanding that is over time is my next endeavors. There's some other things that are along the way, but not quite ready to be revealed.
Fair enough. And so if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
So the 5-minute success is easy because it's a number 5-minute success. And there's a website, that's the podcast. All of the books are on Amazon and Audible. And if you do want to have a conversation with me to see if it would be a good fit for us to work together, if you go on the 5-minute success website, there is a button for a schedule to have a call to work with me to see if this is something that can help you achieve, your highest and best self, your love the life you have as you create and co-create the life of your dreams.
I love it. Thank you so much, Karen. This is such a fun conversation, and I love all the nuggets of value that you provided to our listeners. So really appreciate it, and all the best in your future endeavors.
Well, I'm thrilled to be part of the Gentle Art of Crushing It community. So kudos to your team as well.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.